And we are live. Hey guys, welcome to Massive Iron Live. It is Friday, July 24th. I was going to say the last Friday in July, but we got one more to go. So I'm joined by Robert Shinetsky, the supplement engineer. Robert is down in Texas. He joins me every Friday, which is a absolute pleasure. Robert is a supplement genius. And I don't mind placing crowns on his head that I don't have to live up to, titles on in his lap that I don't have to live up to. But if there's an expert in the supplement world, it is Robert. Robert also knows hypertrophy really well. So if you have any questions about supplements, hypertrophy, or just off-topic stuff, toss them in Robert's lap, and I'll sit back and be entertained. Now, before I get into things, if you guys have any, if you guys want to connect with Robert, he is the supplement engineer on Instagram, on YouTube. You still have your supplement engineer podcast going, is that correct?
Yes, sir. Recording a new episode this coming Tuesday with the owner of Applied Nutrition, a UK-based supplement company that's been around for like 8 or 9 years.
I'd like to say that I'm able to follow what everybody's doing on social media, but it's to the point in my life where I can barely keep up on my own social media. So, and you know, with the way 2020 is going, I'm trying to stay off social media so I don't get angry every 7 seconds. So, before we dive in, guys, a couple of housekeeping notes. If we do not see your question, we are not ignoring you. YouTube can be glitchy, so post your questions up again. And you can post questions on anything: diet, training, supplementation, nutrition, off topic. We don't mind off topic. Any baseball fans that want to chime in on the new baseball rules, or the cardboard cutouts in the baseball stadiums at the Dodger game last night, feel free. So, yeah, what's going on down there in Texas, Robert?
Living life in in the COVID pandemic, or the farce that is the COVID pandemic, or whatever you want to call it. I mean, I'm still plugging away doing my writing, my formulation consultants, the one-on-one stuff. So I mean, from a work standpoint, it's been more or less the same for me. I've had a couple of cool potential projects maybe breaking in the coming weeks, which will be fun. I'll get to do some more hands-on stuff with some of the ingredient houses in the industry, which would be nice. Sandy's prepping for school because her school is going to be going back to in-person teaching, and the halfling is enjoying her life. She's none the wiser to anything else. So
in-person teaching, that's a really hot debate down here, which is something we don't want to get into and bore everybody to death. But
right.
Yeah, I mean, Robert, you're a baseball fan, is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up playing baseball. My team, I liked the minor league team that was biased, and the Braves were my jam when I was a kid. Greg Maddux, Tom Glavine, John Smoltz, man, I love the Braves. That's where they were.
Powerhouse pitching staff.
Their heyday, man.
I've been out of the loop, and I tuned in last night to find out that there's some extra inning rule, and that relief pitchers have to face 3 batters. I'm like, oh no, don't mess with the hallowed game. All right, so guys, let us know where you're at, how you're doing, who's here, and chiming in. Let's get rolling.
Do you like the instant replay in baseball, Steve? Do you think that's good?
I'm going to be honest with you. The last 2 years, I've really, outside of the World Series, I have not watched any games. Our lives have gotten so busy that I watched a couple World Series games, but not enough to have an opinion on it. How about you?
I mean, I understand why it's good, but I think I still like the human element. Same thing with replay in the NFL. I think it slows down the pacing of the game, and it can make a 3-hour game into like a 4.5-hour game. In certain instances, sure, it probably has benefit, but I don't know. I'm kind of
Well, here's my opinion. If you're going to move to something like that, we have the technology right now to make things automated. So if we're going to move to a technology, instead of slowing down the game and doing an instant replay, put some sort of a sensor in the glove of the first baseman and a sensor in the bag or something. There's got to be, there's got to be some way.
Oh yeah, we don't even need umpires then at that point to call strikes and balls anymore. You can put enough cameras around there to analyze everything.
Well, you look at like the game last night and the technology, they can see where the ball comes at the front of the plate, where the ball is at the end of the plate. They can line up multiple pitches to show you where the ball, starts changing direction. The technology is there. I'm just going to toss this up there because Chris has that lovely stare that we all can't stop looking at. Fauci called his first pitch the China curve. There was a really funny headline on the Drudge Report this morning about Fauci throwing out the first pitch saying he flattened his curve. It was just absolutely hilarious. All right, let's get into it. Arnav, hello. How you going, Arnav? Stian, my client, hello from the Viking land, Norway. How strong were the Vikings compared to today's humans? Well, I'm going to say that they were probably more sturdy because they had to do more physical labor. And, they had to work a little bit harder than the average man who can't change a tire these days. But how strong were they? I don't really know. I have no idea. Robert, is the romance around the Vikings a lot of hype, would you say?
Yes, because and this is actually going to segue into something else. Okay, so NFL, the Washington Redskins are no more. We have the Washington football team now.
And I'd rather have it be the Washington team football so it could be the WTFs.
So we're okay getting rid of the Redskins name, even though, there's enough stories out there showing that people of Native American descent don't have an issue with the mascot. It's a select minority that are being the squeaky wheel. Why do we continue to allow the Vikings to be a mascot when they were rapists, pillagers, plunderers, all of these? They did horrific things to the peoples and the towns of the villages they savaged in Europe. So why are we okay keeping that mascot around? I mean, if you look back far enough in anybody's history, you're going to find some wicked shit they did. So, I mean, anyway, that's a story for another day.
Some people's wicked shit is perceived to be cooler than other people's wicked shit. If you're a Viking and you rape and pillage and plunder, or you're a pirate and you rape and pillage and plunder, you're part of the cool club.
Apparently so.
Let's not bring logic and rational thought into this discussion, Robert. What the hell are you trying to do?
I do think humans back then
all history and start from scratch, okay?
But
I'm willing to do that if we take all Antifa downtown and hang them all in public. Then I'm willing to wipe all of history. All right. What a way to start.
Man, we were on fire this morning. Even with your intro, Steve, you must have got some good sleep, or you're highly caffeinated because you're in a good mood today.
No, man. Honestly, I've been waiting for baseball to start for so long, and we splurged. We drank too much beer last night. I have too little sleep and too much beer last night, and I have to run today. So Stan says, do you like San Miguel beer? I've actually not heard of it, so I'll take a look at it on Beer Advocate. I'm pretty picky as far as beer goes, so I tend to explore a lot, but I've not heard of that.
It's a Filipino pale lager.
Okay.
Largest selling beer in the Philippines and Hong Kong.
That scares me.
I have never tried it myself. I usually am more of a dark beer fan. So amber on down the road to like stouts, porters, Russian imperial stouts. Those are really good. They're dangerous though.
Anytime I hear mass-produced beer, I think of like Natural Light or something. So
cheap college kid beer.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a beer snob. I like something with flavor, and that has a little bit of craftsmanship behind it. So,
what kind of beers were y'all drinking last night?
I found a really good IPA from, it's called Melvin, by a company called Melvin, and I've tried some of their beers before. Didn't really care for it, but just really good, really good flavor. It's something that's drinkable. A lot of IPAs aren't drinkable, meaning, you can't have them one over the other, after the other, because they just pound your palate.
Yeah.
But this one was very drinkable. So,
I never developed a taste for IPAs. It's I don't know what it is. Too hoppy for me.
I would tell you to try a New England IPA because they tend to be a little bit sweeter, a little bit stronger, a little less bitter, and just if you can find one, check that out. All right, Arnav. Hey, so Greg Doucette. Oh, we're right into the Greg Doucette. I'm just glad this isn't about apple goop. I was going to make a video about this. You got Greg Doucette making a video about apple goop, where he combines apples and oatmeal, and it's called a recipe. And then you have like Mark Lobleiner, that puts water in protein powder and calls it sludge. I'm not discounting the flavor or the use of these recipes, but whenever a bodybuilder calls something a recipe, it's like, look, Mom, I put water into apples and created goop. So anyway.
What I found funny was he tried to make like the sludge bowl. Like they sold that at Tiger Fitness for a while. Like, it's a fucking Tupperware bowl. It's not some magical vessel.
Yeah, they made the sludge bowl. Like, look, I put water and protein powder, and now I'm going to make a special bowl for it, right?
I mean, shit, Mark knows how to sell stuff, so, man, more power to him. If he can make money doing it, people are buying it. I mean, shit, the pet rock was a thing. So.
Yeah, it just cracks me up. All right, so Greg Doucette made a video I noticed a couple months ago, and he was talking about how you don't need to gain strength for muscle. That's this topic is here's what I'm going to say. Okay, I'm going to try to keep it rational and reasonable. Show me one bodybuilder that benches under 135, okay, that has an incredible amount of mass. And when you come back with that bodybuilder, we will entertain this foolish discussion. It is the most ridiculous, stupid. I'd like to use the word retarded here, but I don't want to offend those that actually have mental retardation and confuse them with somebody as idiotic as Greg Doucette. So I'm not exactly sure of what his words are. So maybe somebody could come up with an exact quote. What we often run into in the bodybuilding world is bodybuilders saying you don't have to chase strength, and what they're meaning is you don't have to be as strong as a power lifter. But I just had Sean Clarita on this channel. Sean is pound for pound stronger than me. Nearly every top bodybuilder I've worked with over the years, from natural Mr. Minnesota to natural Mr. North Carolina, guys like Sean Clarita, Ronnie Coleman, you name it, pound for pound, they're stronger than me. So, Robert, I don't imagine you follow Greg Doucette's channel much, but this seems like almost like a misquote.
It could be, or I mean, I'm almost wondering if he's trying to, I guess, clap back at the notion that the only way to instill progressive overload is to continually add weight to the bar. So maybe that's what he's saying by you don't need to gain strength. So like you can still progress in your workouts and you can still build muscle if you can't add weight to the bar each workout. But over the long term, you're going to eventually have to add weight to the bar. So I mean, that goes without saying. You can use other tools to improve strength output and muscle building in the interim. But if you're looking, across decades and decades of training, you're not going to be benching 135, 20 years down the road if you want to get bigger and stronger. You're going to have to have added weight to the bar at some point, regardless of playing with time under tension, tempo manipulation, range of motion, reps, sets, all of that stuff. You're going to have to add weight at some point.
So let's say theoretically, and I'm going to dive into this a little bit because it's an interesting discussion. It's something I've talked about before. Let's say you're a guy like me that starts at 95 for 3x4 on bench. That's what I started on my first workout. And I putz around a little bit, get my bench press up to 135 by 3x4. And then I realize I watch a channel like Greg Doucette's or something that says there's other progression variables other than progressive overload in weight. So we look at these other variables. You can rest periods. You can reduce rest in between sets. You can add sets. You can add reps. You're adding volume. You can slow your reps down, so you're adding time under tension. What other variables? You could increase the frequency. Mm-hmm. What other variables could we adjust? Could we progressively overload?
Range of motion, I guess, to where you, instead of just doing a regular rep, you do like a 1.5 rep or something like that. So where you're increasing the range of motion on it.
Yeah, you could do things like curls 21s, right?
Right. So
1.5 reps. You could do some advanced techniques, drop sets, that sort of thing.
Yeah, supersets. You could drop. You could do your 135 bench and then immediately drop down and do push-ups to failure. Or do a mechanical drop set to where you start on like an incline bench press at 135, drop it down to the next elevation, drop it down, the next elevation, drop it down. So you're doing a mechanical drop set. So, so let's say your incline's really weak and you're strongest at your flat bench. So you're starting at your weakest, you rep out to failure there, then drop it down. So while you may be stronger on the flat bench, by the time you've done, 20 or 30 reps on all those other inclines, you're going to be fatigued, and that 135 is still be challenging on the flat bench. So, I mean, you could do all these things, but every tool is eventually going to reach its limit, and you're going to have to eventually at some point add weight to the bar.
Yeah, that's the big point here. All these, if you list everything you can progressively overload, or every variable you can change in a training program, and okay, so you have a compound movement, right? I get it on the screen. A compound movement has a wide range that you could progress. You can move your bench press from 135 by 3x4 to say 335 by 3x4, which isn't unreasonable for somebody that's training 10 to 15 years. So you can only add so much set volume. You can only add so much rest volume or rep volume. You can only reduce reps in between sets for so long. You can only add so many intensity techniques like 1.5 reps, drop sets, supersets. That stuff is very finite, and that's going to reach its limit probably within 4 to 6 months. Would that be a fair assessment, Robert?
Yeah, I would think so, yeah. Assuming your diet and sleep and recovery is on point, yeah.
So let's say after 4 to 6 months, you've taken 135 and you're going super slow reps, 1.5 reps, reduced, you're doing rest pause, you're doing all this stuff. And you can make progress doing all that stuff, right? Time under tension, rest pause, drop sets. That would be a very, very intense workout. Very reminiscent of heavy duty Mike Mentzer type of stuff. But at the end of the road, once you've run into a wall with that, it's going to come back to progressive overload again, adding weight to the bar.
Yeah.
So
every tool has its application, and there's a right way and a wrong way to implement each of those. So you can decrease rest periods, but I mean, if you're going to get to a point where you're doing like 5 or 10 second rest periods, and then you're not going to be able to reduce the rest anymore. So then you're just going to be doing 50 reps straight. And what's the muscle building power of doing 50 reps without taking a break? There's not much stress being placed on the muscles at that point. You'll get a little bit of metabolite accumulation, but after a while, I mean, that's probably the least of all the things that drive muscle hypertrophy. That's probably the one that's the weakest of the three.
So when you look at, like, people will say, why are we so obsessed with compound movements? Compound movements afford you a wide opportunity for weight increases. Plus you can add in all these other variables. An isolation exercise like a chest fly or a dumbbell side lateral, they have the smallest potential for weight increases. So really all you're left doing with them is trying to increase the intensity somehow. They end up being a finisher or something that is like icing on the cake once you've smashed the rest of things in your program. Very hard to progressively overload. Until I started doing bulldozer laterals, my if I just do regular side laterals right now, Robert, I'm doing 25 pounds. That's what I did in 1988.
Right. Yeah. Small muscle groups have a very limited bandwidth for progressions from a weight standpoint, to where you might start off being able to curl 15-pound dumbbells, and then by the time 30 years down the road, you might get up to 40s or 50s, but you're not going to be able to increase it to 100 pounds and all of that stuff like you would for a bench press, where you can go, like you said, from 95 to 400 pounds.
Yeah, that is why I feel like if you're going to introduce other forms of progressive overload, you're best off building your strength base up first, especially on anything that aren't the primary compound movements, and then start calling that in play to get the last 3 to 5%, maybe 10% out of your game.
Right.
That's my opinion. All right, Chris, the man with the sexy eyes. Fauci called his first pitch the China curve. I hope he didn't actually call it the China curve, because Donald Trump's not allowed to call it the China virus. So
yeah, the Wuhan virus or anything else.
I assume that's just humor. Marco, hi from the Netherlands. How's it going, Marco? Hope you are doing well. Hope the gyms are open. Hope the weather's good over there. BenonAdventures. And it's going to be the Cleveland Baseball Club. Yeah, he's talking about the Cleveland Indians. I don't want to like get into all this political correctness stuff in this live video, but like calling somebody the Indians, they are Indians. They're. I don't know why that's considered inherently, dishonorable. It's almost a way of honoring them, or should we just ignore they exist? I don't know. I mean, there are some names that on the surface appear more offensive than others, but I think we should let the minority groups decide whether they want the attention, the positive attention, or they think a name's offensive. What do you think about that, Robert?
I mean, yeah, and I think by and large, like the Florida State Seminoles, the football team there, they have a very close relationship with the actual Seminole Nation, the Indian tribe. And, they went back. I mean, this stuff happened 4 or 5 years ago where a bunch of the college teams were removing anything that had affiliations with Native American tribes. So it's this really small minority, from what I've gathered. It's a small minority that's being very vocal. And I almost can't help but wonder if it's just people that are crying out for attention.
I wonder if it's the Indians at all, or if it's just these radical white people like the Antifa type of groups.
Yeah, the social justice warriors out there that feel they have to find slam the PC button down on everything.
So I don't know. I'd be curious. All right. Redline Fitness. What's going on, Redline? Redline's a client of mine. He started a YouTube channel, curiously enough, called Redline Fitness. I gave him some advice yesterday on the phone. So you guys can check out his YouTube channel, Redline Fitness. Go give him advice. Go give him a topic idea and tell him he needs to get his weight down another 10 pounds because veins are starting to pop in his shoulders. And another 10 pounds, he's going to look ripped and sick. All right, BenonAdventures. I've said at this rate we need to take down the pyramids. History before modern communication, it's filled with war and violence. What can you imagine what it would be like to live in the Wild West? To be crossing the country, with your family and in the middle of nowhere with beggars and thieves and all kinds of miscreants. I don't know. So, yep. All right. San Miguel is a Spanish premium lager. I'm balking a little bit at the use of premium, but I'm sure it's a Spanish lager. That's just my beer snob.
It might be, but when I typed in San Miguel beer, that was the Filipino pale ale. So maybe there's
I don't know,
different San Miguel's.
Yeah, somebody get me a beer advocate rating. I'd be curious what it's rated. David Foster. Elbow tendon pain plus left grip pain. How long to recover? Can I work through it? Elbow tendonitis is something you have to be a little bit proactive with. I've made several videos on this. Get yourself some VersaGrips. They're $55. They will help relieve some of the tension and stress that we place on our wrist and our grip from all the rowing and pulling exercises. How long can it take to recover? I have no idea. It depends on the extent of the injury and the condition. So, Robert, any thoughts to add on that?
If you're going to keep trying to train through it, use some different exercise variations. So if, curling with a supinated grip, so, fingers facing you, maybe try doing a neutral grip, same thing with your pull-ups and stuff like that. But if it's to the point where it's really irritating you and nagging you, just take some time off, man. You'll be fine.
All right, what do we got here? You guys keep the questions coming. Don't hesitate to ask multiple questions. Always looking for good material. And all you silent people out there that don't ask questions and tune in, I appreciate it. But don't hesitate to ask a question. Don't think there's any dumb questions. Yesterday on Instagram, I asked people to post a question on a thread, my Instagram over at Ben the Barman, and I must have had 40 questions. So just keep them coming. BenonAdventures, Talking Strength. Menno Henselman is known for science and being lean, but in an interview, I heard him discussing one of the biggest things he focuses on with clients is strength and then volume. With clients, some of the issues I face are a client feels spent after the first compound movement. So they'll ask, should I back off on the first compound movement so I have more strength and energy for the additional movements? Strength is a big thing. Conditioning is a big thing. Getting people to have a reasonable focus on volume and progressive overload at the same time seems easy, but it's a challenge for most. Robert, are you familiar with Menno? We see him tossed around a lot on this channel, but I don't know much about him.
Yeah, I've listened to him. He's done several roundtables with Dr. Mike and Eric Helms on the Revive Stronger podcast. So for anybody that's listening to us today, go check out a bunch of their roundtables. They've done individualization roundtables, progressive overload roundtables, deload roundtables, discussing all different kind of things of hypertrophy. Specifically, not necessarily strength, but more muscle building, because that's basically the angle of the Revive Stronger podcast. It's for natural bodybuilding. But yeah, overall, he's a guy that's rooted in science. He's done work on and contributed on papers with Helms, with Brad Schoenfeld, all the major guys that are in kind of like the hypertrophy research sphere. Super smart guy, and he knows what he's talking about, I would say, for the most part. Yeah, I don't think I've come across anything that seems too counter to what I've read and in my own research.
All right, thanks, Robert. I'm going to move on here to stoempert or steampert, whatever you want to call it, steampunk. Greg is a contrarian, but don't think for 1 minute he doesn't know about the nuances of muscle building. Greg, I'm just going to say this, and this is my opinion and only my opinion. Greg floats some things out there sometimes that I don't think he believes them. Specifically when he's going after Athlean X and saying Athlean X stays lean all year round because of drug use. We know that's bullshit. I mean, even in the steroid community, if you go on a steroid forum and ask them what, cycle they use, what, compound or what compounds or what cocktail of drugs, they can't disagree. And no cocktail of drugs is going to keep you lean year round without the discipline. I made a video this week about pro bodybuilders, and this can apply to, and I'd like you to chime in on this, Robert, strongman, power lifters. Whenever somebody sees a big power lifter pull a big number or a big bodybuilder, we get the comments, drugs, drugs, drugs. Like somehow us, me, you, or anybody else could equal what they're doing if we just took drugs. The same thing with Athlean X. He's only what he is because of drugs. Do you really believe Greg Doucette believes that? I mean, that takes a lot of dietary discipline, and it's not drugs. So, Robert, I want you to share some thoughts on that.
Yeah,
Could you compete in the strongman if you just had the perfect combination of drugs, Robert?
Not a chance. All right, so there is research showing that you give people testosterone, even if they're not training, they're going to build some muscle.
Right.
It's not going to be like Mr. Olympia muscle, but it's going to be, you'll get maybe 5 to 10 pounds of muscle from just taking steroids. Do you think that's going to make you capable of deadlifting 800, 900, 1,000 pounds without actually, grinding your balls into the dirt and training your ass off for weeks and weeks and years on end? Not a chance. Yeah. The steroids are allowing them to either cut weight or recover faster, ramp up muscle protein synthesis in the body. But at the end of the day, you still have to put in that work. Are you going to be able to recover faster than a natural athlete, which means you can train more often? Yeah. But you're still having to put in the time, dedication, and effort into your diet, training, sleep, and recovery in order to be able to progress and move those weights. So are they getting some extra enhancement? Yes, but that still doesn't erase the work that they're doing in the first place.
Yeah, I know some pretty strong and fat power lifters that take human growth hormone and some of the same drugs that some of the bodybuilders take, and it's not the compounds, it's the diet. What you said, Robert, about the science showing you can gain 5 to 10 pounds of muscle, I will add this to the discussion. As somebody that's worked with clients, and a lot of my clients are older, over 40, and a fair share of them are on TRT or have been on TRT, reasonable TRT, you're going to see maybe a 2 to 3 pound muscle gain. Reasonable, normal TRT. And in this day and age, TRT is much more aggressive than it was even 15 years ago. 15 years ago, they might be looking at 25 milligrams a week or every other week. And now it's more like 200-300.
I got a question for you, Steve, regarding. Okay, so this is something Sandy and I were talking about the other day. All right, so birth control is free, legal for everybody. You don't have to have a script for it anymore for females. They can just walk up to the prescription counter and get their walk to the pharmacy and get their birth control, which is female hormone replacement therapy. Right. Why isn't TRT free for men?
Well, Robert, I think we've discussed somatopause, or the decline in human growth hormone levels over time.
Yeah.
Somatopause is something nobody talks about, which I find to be one of the most disgusting aspects of modern medicine. The decline of hormones as we age. Obviously, some of that is from lack of exercise and some of that is from lack of diet.
Right.
But if we really are concerned with the health of individuals, hormones should be the first thing we look at. And they should be cheap, they should be easy to access, and we should have a better understanding of what people should take, et cetera, especially human growth hormone. Now, there is some indication that obviously if you have cancer cells in your body and you're taking human growth hormone, they might expedite the cancer, and there is some risks. But for the average individual, quality of life and longevity, access to hormones should be normal. It should be, a discussion we need to talk about seriously, but we don't. What is your opinion, Robert? I mean,
Sadie asked me that question. She said, "What do you think? Should it be?" I said, "I mean, that's a loaded question."
We got access to insulin, right?
Yeah.
So we have testosterone, we have estrogen, we have human growth hormone, we have insulin, and we have cortisol, which isn't really anything I'm going to be too concerned about. But what should men and women have access to? What do you feel we should have access to for health?
Insulin, I think, is a really dangerous one, because you take too much of that, you can put yourself into a diabetic coma real quick. That's something that, and obviously type 2 diabetics have insulin, type 1 diabetics have insulin too. So they're trained and given how much to do. So obviously, when my dad takes his long acting and fast acting insulins during the day, he's been trained by the doctor on how much. When we get to testosterone, man, there are so many benefits, I think, to it, as far as the longevity standpoint, muscle growth, helping combat against fat accumulation, cognitive function, mood enhancement.
Yes.
There's also, at the same time, there's also some research showing that you megadose test, there's psychopathy traits that start to manifest. You get the quintessential roid rage going on. So the dose makes the poison. There is a benefit to it. It's interesting. I would love to see what would happen in a world where we had access to. Is everybody just gonna be walking around jacked and tanned and just loving life? I don't know.
It would probably take, given the amount of money we funnel into the supplement and diet industry, if people would swap that cash for hormones, we'd probably all look sexier, and it'd be easier to walk into Walmart than trying to figure out. The funniest thing, and I'm not making fun of obese people, but with the expansion of the obesity epidemic, you're now seeing people watching is like next level now, because you're seeing so many unique body types and body shapes and shelves and layers and things that you've never seen before. On large people, it's like, wow, you can't walk into Walmart and just, again, I'm not making fun of these people, but it's like there's so many people in such disrepair and such ill health, and it's just mind-blowing. So anyway, all right. What do we got here? enough. You could add weight whenever the rest periods get from 3 minutes to 60 seconds, right? Yeah, you could. I've done programs like this before where you cycle rest and cycle intensity. You could take a weight, say 135, and you could move over a period of time until you're able to do sets of 135. Say you're doing 5 sets of 135 for 10 reps or 5 reps or whatever. When you can get that down to 60 seconds rest in between sets, then you could move it up to 145 and then try to accordion back down to 60 seconds between sets. So there are many, many things you can do with programming to make it interesting. But that's one possible way to do it. Robert, any thoughts on that?
No, you summed it up perfectly. When doing that way, reducing rest, you're improving your training density. So the amount of work you're doing per unit volume. I'm sorry, per unit time. There we go.
Before I get into this question by John, I want to toss something out there and I want to get Robert's opinion. Occasionally, I get people that come to me that say they're bored with their resistance training. And I'm always torn between going, like Stone Cold Steve Austin, Dwayne The Rock Johnson on them. Like, it doesn't matter if you're, bored with your resistance training. You can turn it sideways and stick it straight up your ass. Training has a function, right?
Right.
I've been doing the same exercises for 35 years. That doesn't make me a hero, a role model, or anything. It just makes me probably a dipshit. But training has a specific function. If you're going to train to be a top swimmer, you're basically going to do the same thing over and over and over and over again for 20 years, right? So when people say they're bored with their training, what does it make you think, Robert?
And my initial reaction is to think that they're not actually training. They just like the workout vibe. So what they really want is a workout. They don't actually want to train, because when you're training, you are dedicating yourself to a specific goal. And with that, you have this tunnel vision focus that you are setting yourself on a path, and you're going to do the most efficient way to get to your end goal. So if you get bored with your training, you're really just bored of your current workouts, and you want some kind of novel stimulus in there to make it feel like you need the hit of dopamine that comes when you change up a program variable, where you start changing up exercise orders or anything like that. So I think that's part of it. I don't know if they're actually serious about training. I think they're more just interested in like working out and getting the high from working out. And they feel like, if they feel exhausted, they feel depleted, they feel run out. And so I think that's what makes people want to change up things all the time, because and that's one thing I guess I've never understood either, is that, something has worked for you for 5 years, and then all of a sudden you're thinking, well, I got to change it up now, don't I? Well, not necessarily. If you've built a lot of muscle and strength using this one way of training, why would you change it up all of a sudden? I mean, is it the fear that you're missing some vital component? And I'm going to tell you, there's not some secret sauce to getting progress. It's, using a good selection of exercises, progressive overload, eating right, sleeping well, and just getting back after it day after day after day. You're not going to magically inject some new chest exercise into your program and it's going to magically enhance your gains and add 50 pounds to your bench press.
Yeah, I think when I hear that, it's irritating for me, because it kind of is people don't really understand. They're not really understanding why they're doing what they're doing. So I try not to get irritated. I try to explain to them, like, look, resistance training has a point. The point is to achieve this, and this is the vehicle to achieve that. If you are bored with your training system, understand you're going to move. You can move to a new system, but you're going to be using the same exercises. Like, people come to me, clients will come to me and like, I want exercise variety. Like, it's a barbell and dumbbells.
Yeah.
I'm not going to put you on a Basu ball or, have you tie up your genitalia with bands or rings or anything while you're doing some, one leg in the air, toe kipping bullshit. I don't know. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Not to be all Pornhub again, but if you want to change, if somebody's bored with their training, they pretty much change your assistance exercises, lighter ones. I think you can change those every week if you want, just based on how you feel.
Yeah, I guess you can change, like, instead of doing your same, 3x5 or 3x10 or something like that, try block training or do a rep goal system or something like that. But I mean, you're not going to get away from the core exercises. They're a reason they've survived for decades and decades. They work.
Yeah, I mean, I put together systems over the years and I just did one for a client this week that alternated weeks of volume and alternated weeks of rest pause,
Mm-hmm.
just so they had something a little bit different to look forward to.
Right.
Excuse me. All right, John. John has the sexiest beard on this channel. I'm just going to say I always admire that beard, John, and just want to let you know that we have a man crush on your beard. Can you recommend a replacement for SNS joint support? Yeah, I don't know, John. I'll let Robert field this, but I'm very frustrated with SNS because I email them and message them so often, and it's always out of stock.
Yeah. So, John, in the interim, go look up Morphogen's Orthogen, Orthogen. You can also check out SNS's Cissus XT or Innova Farms Super Cissus, which is CISSUS. But the good news for everybody out here listening is that Steve and I had a talk after the live ended last week, and I just said, look, I've got enough connections with supplement companies. And then I'm formulating a joint support formula right now. It's going to be released under Apollon Nutrition. It's going to have some of the ingredients that are in Joint Support XT, and basically this is going to be the most comprehensive joint formula you have seen on the market. We did the initial cost of goods came back a little bit higher than I expected, but we are going to make the most premium joint support formula on the market. Look for it to come out in probably a month or two time once we get the flavor samples done and all of that. So until then, go check out Orthogen by Morphogen Nutrition. But outside of that, we will have the Supplement Engineer's own joint support formula coming out soon.
I would love. I mean, me and Robert have entertained, working together on stuff, but the cash outlay. I was going to jump into the D3K2 realm, and I had it almost there. I just had to get packaging and stuff, but then the lockdowns hit. And my wife's business was shut down, and we had to tighten up the belt with cash. So launching a supplement line can be a little bit tricky. We were going to do a test product, and if that sold, we would maybe branch out into a second product like joints, but it's might never happen unless we can figure out how to deal with shutting down everybody's business. David, let's see. We did that question already. That's a repeat. Larry, can you still expect newbie gains if you've weight trained for sports but started bodybuilding style training last year? All right. I've done videos on this before, but let me see if I can do this. This is a lifetime of your gains. Okay. Let's say it's 16 fluid ounces. Okay. That's what you're going to get as a natural, whatever that might be, 30, 35 pounds. If you only take a little bit of that, and you still have the remaining amount to go. So if you're there after 5 years, you can get about half of that each year thereafter, half of your remaining pool if you are training properly. So newbie gains, whatever you have left in your gains cup, you can absolutely get about half of that. So if you haven't built much muscle mass, you can gain about half of that in the upcoming year if you train properly. That's just a generalization, but it's a pretty reasonable estimate. Robert, any thoughts on that?
Nope, you got it, Steve. The only thing I would say is, what kind of lifting were you doing for sports? Is it mostly power cleans and whatnot? Or, I mean, I would assume that you're doing the core lifts anyway. Anybody that's training for sports has probably done bench press, squats, deadlifts, power cleans, things like that. You might not be doing as much volume as you would on a bodybuilding style routine, but you probably would have made most of your newbie gains doing a proper resistance training program for sports.
Yeah, and let's say the average person adds 30 pounds of muscle. Obviously, the potential that is there for a little bit more, maybe 32, maybe 35, depending on what expert you talk to, but we're in the ballpark. So let's say you had 10 pounds of muscle. You eked out some newbie gains. Let's say you have 20 pounds left, and you decide to attack it in the gym. you have a potential to add about 10 pounds of muscle this year, potential, which is really, really good. Now, if you're somebody that added 10 pounds of muscle 5 years ago, and then you had a baby and you got out of the gym and you're flat and deflated, the good news is when you come back, you have the potential not only to engage or call into play muscle memory, but you also have the potential to add 10 more pounds of muscle this year. So if you're one of these guys that added mass in the past and you're getting back into the gym, you have a really huge potential to increase in size very, very rapidly.
Yep.
Let's see. And Robert, on any of these, if you have anything to add, just jump on in. Brandon, how much slower will my gains be doing a bro split versus 2 times per week split? Robert, this you know what I'm going to say, so I'm going to let you have the floor on this one.
The only way to know that, Brandon, is to take a carbon copy of yourself, make an identical clone of yourself, and then put you on a bro split for a year, and put your clone on a twice per week split for a year, and make sure you both follow the exact same diet. It in the end, don't focus on 1 year progress unless you're trying to train to become a professional bodybuilder. You're at the end of 15, 20, 30 years of training, whenever you finally set down the weights and just say, fuck it, I'm done. I don't care about resistance training anymore. And hopefully that never happens. But in the end, it's not going to make a hill of beans difference. You might get there, in 5 years and 2 months compared to, 4 years and 11 months. It's going to be marginal at best is the difference in your gains rate.
I want to start off by saying there's a couple points we need to understand here. Most people aren't training hard enough for any of this to matter. And that's not dismissing the subject, but 98% of the people that ask this question are not training hard enough for it to matter at all. So most people need to increase what they are doing, their efficiency of what they're doing in the gym first and foremost, and not worry about a bro split or a frequency training, okay? They need to get their shit together. And that is where somebody like me or Robert or any of these other experts, Dr. Mike or whatever, can help. They can focus your training. Second off, the difference between frequency and a split is often pictured to be like a wide gulf, a wide gap. The reality is we're talking percentage points, okay? So if we get back to maybe you have 30 pounds of muscle to gain over the course of a year or a course of your life. If you break this down mathematically, and let's say on a frequency training, you gain 15 pounds that first year, and on a bro split, you gain 12 pounds that first year. The second year, going into the second year, and the frequency training, you have a potential to gain 15. And in a bro split, a potential to gain 18. If you divide that in half, you have more potential the second year on a bro split. That's math. So the faster you burn through your gains, the slower they're going to come. On a bro split, you might burn through them a little bit more slowly, maybe a few percentage points. But if you're training properly, after the second or third year, the amount of mass that you're accruing is probably going to be equal or greater than on a frequency training in the second or third year, because you still have as much potential. And it's not an advocacy for any specific style of training. It's simply mathematics and trying to let you guys understand that it doesn't matter over 3, 4, 5 years. It simply doesn't matter if you're training properly, because it's not 50% greater if you use a frequency split. The difference is trivial, and over 5 years, it doesn't matter. And anybody that disagrees with me is wrong. Okay.
There you go.
Well, I'm just being a smartass. I'm just being a jackass there. So that's a little humor, right? MC Adams puts ends. I'm not one of these guys that's going to come out and say I'm the god of all knowledge, but I'm just trying to bring some reasonable, rational thought to it. MC Adams, I didn't see anything before this comment. I'm looking around, so I'm not sure. Maybe you could repost. All right. one of our frequent commenters. I have bad insomnia. You know, Robert, this is something I run into so many people, sleep issues. And I'd really like your opinion on what is going on and why people can't sleep. If it's psychological, if it's sleep habits, etc., hormonal. I have bad insomnia and take 5 medications for it. Wow. That scares me.
Is that actual medications? Is it supplements? I mean, if none of the 5 are working, I'd stop taking those.
Yeah, dude. I mean, seriously, all the side effects in that big swimming pool, the side effects include your penis falling off and growing a third ear. I still only get 4 hours of sleep a night. I would dump those medications and find a new doctor. I seriously would if that were me. I work 70 hours a week and have lost 30 pounds. I just want to maintain a little mass. Will this hinder me? Yeah, over the long run.
Yeah. Getting that little of sleep jacks your cortisol up, increases muscle protein breakdown, increases stress levels, promotes fat accumulation. Chronic sleep deprivation leads to chronic elevations in cortisol, which also disrupts energy metabolism, cognitive function, motivation to train, your motility during the day, so how much you get up, around, and move, which decreases your overall energy expenditure, which if you're overeating is going to lead to fat gain. Yeah, you want to get some sleep, and if 5 medications are not helping you get sleep, I would go and talk to your doctor and see, do you need to keep taking all 5 of these medications for bad sleep? Look back at, how's your stress life? Obviously, working 70 hours a week is going to be stressful.
Right.
There's no way around it outside of saying, are there other job opportunities? And I'm not going to be somebody to go tell somebody, hey, go quit your job, because it's not making you sleep well. Not everybody has that luxury. You want to focus on, I guess, improving your sleep hygiene if at all possible. So setting your room cool, like 66 to 68 degrees at night. Wear comfortable clothing. Keep your room as dark as possible. Avoid blue light. And 2 hours before bed. Limit caffeine in the afternoons and the hours leading up to bed if you're caffeine sensitive. Avoid stressors at night. So don't check your email, social media, text messages, the evening news, because it's just a shit show out there. And make sure you're consuming enough protein as well, because there's going to be increased protein breakdown with sleep deprivation. So make sure you're getting lots and lots of protein.
I'm very curious. It kind of breaks my heart when I see people like this, because I have clients like this that have really, really bad insomnia. And I can't imagine a life like that, because, sleep and rest are so very, very important.
Mm-hmm.
And when you get on a roll and you can't sleep, I've had times, like when I was in the military and my unit would be out in the field, I would get 3 to 5 hours of sleep a night. And it was just, I was wrecked. I was absolutely wrecked. So I can't imagine, but I don't know, how much of this is psychological, hormonal. I don't know what is broken in a body when insomnia is called into play.
I mean, have you experimented with melatonin at all, Buffalo Sabskis? How's your stress, your psychological stress as well? And your exercise habits. Are you exercising really close to right before bed? Are you exercising very intensely right before bed? That could disrupt some sleep. If you're drinking alcohol too late at night, that can disrupt sleep as well too. There's a lot to unpack here.
Well, I'm going to, there's also relational issues, a bad relationship. Sometimes when you go to bed with a partner and there's nothing there, feeling lonely, feeling bored in a relationship, feeling useless. I run into a lot of, obviously, being a man, I coach a lot of men, obviously. And one of the interesting things for men over 40, and I'm not sure that this is any issue at all, but I'm just kind of speaking on the subject in general, is I find a lot of men over the age of 40 just want to be with their wives, physically. And, their wives have grown into a level of disinterest. So it's often pictured that the man wants to go stray. But I find a lot of men just want to be intimate with their wives. Mm-hmm. And a substantial percentage, there's just disinterest on the wife's part. Mm-hmm. So for men, that can certainly add to the stress, depression, pool. So
Right.
I don't know. It's to get back to what he said, Robert. Will this hinder me? There are certainly things you can do to maximize muscle mass. We might not be able to. You might not be able to fix the insomnia, but what can he do to maximize the muscle mass outside of training properly?
Consuming enough protein and trying to keep stress every other point of day down low. Also, maybe try supplementing with something like KSM 66, ashwagandha or something, which helps kind of regulate cortisol and keep it lower, since cortisol is a catabolic hormone. Keeping that, a little bit lower will kind of shift things more in your favor.
I would probably recommend you go see a doctor about hormones. Make sure you get everything squared away.
Get tested, to see what the hell's going on.
Just as something to fall back on. Robert, do you think in a case of insomnia, is there any extra benefit to increasing protein intake, or might it be the case for some individuals, I've read that they don't get enough fat intake later in the day or food intake later in the day, and it kind of wakes them up at night. Any advice from a dietary standpoint?
I mean, consuming enough protein will help resist the catabolic effects of sleep deprivation. So if you're in a cutting phase, you definitely want to be consuming at least 1 gram per pound of body weight per day. And some of the research on natural bodybuilders has shown that when you get to like super low levels of leanness, you need to up that to like 1.25 or so. So yeah, if depending on where he was starting to where he is now, make sure you're hitting your protein each day. That'll preserve the muscle mass, and your resistance training workouts will help with that too.
I would try some variables. Let's think Thanksgiving here for a moment and food comas. For somebody that has bad insomnia, it might be worth trying. I'm not saying it's going to make a difference and that it won't make a difference, but for somebody like this, it might be worth trying to do like an intermittent fasting type of diet to see if it impacts you at all, saving your calories for one big meal or one big feeding window 2 to 3 hours before bed, and see if that helps with sleep at all. Now, the first thing I would tell you is track sleep. Get something like this, a Garmin that tracks your sleep. This was a Garmin Forerunner 35, cost $99 at Wally World. You need to get scientific about this and change a few variables and see if it helps, because you might go from 4.5 hours of sleep a night to 5.5. Any increase would be a good increase.
Yep, definitely.
Get scientific. All right, BenonAdventures, what's your recommended grip width for bench? Pinkies on rings at the smallest. Pinkies on rings. Anything more narrow than that is you're really into a close grip bench range. And people misunderstand what a close grip bench is. They think it's super narrow. It's not. So pinkies on rings at the smallest. If you're going to move out, I use middle fingers on rings for my bench. So for most people, depending on your limb lengths, etc., that's about it. Robert, I don't know your history with the bench press. Are you a fan of the lift? Do you use it often? Where do you put your fingers, or do you just?
I usually line up my ring fingers on the rings, so I haven't that's the way it works because I've got long ass monkey arms. The lift, I prefer dumbbells much more just because I'm lanky and long, and the fixed barbell has always just kind of irritated my left shoulder. Even with dumbbells, my left shoulder has always been a problem as far as pressing, which is why I tend to favor things like weighted push-ups, weighted dips over, and I'll do dumbbell presses afterwards. So those feel like they just warm up this whole area a lot better, and I don't get nearly like the tendonitis pinching pain when I lead off with heavy weighted dips or weighted push-ups compared to leading off with a bench or a dumbbell bench.
Thanks, Robert. Let's see. James Leon. Greg Doucette also said the only dude older than Jeff that looks better than him is Mike O'Hearn. The only dude older than Jeff? I don't think Jeff's that old.
No, he's probably in his 40s,
maybe
early 40s.
I don't know. Clarence Bass was way older than Jeff, and Clarence Bass was ripped. Clarence Bass coined the term ripped, and Clarence Bass, all he did was eat healthy his entire life. I don't think he ever had a cheat meal. Well, that's hyperbole a little bit, but it's pretty accurate.
Yeah.
And Doucette could rip on Clarence Bass, but Clarence Bass introduced the term ripped, and Clarence took steroids early on, but for 50 years of his life, he didn't. So Greg's a court jester. Greg's, a monkey at the circus. And you have to understand that when you are getting information from him, that his primary goal is to get subscribers, because it's stuffing his pocket right now. And, that he has a right to do so, right? Make money. It's a free country. But some of the shit he says is absolutely ridiculous and stupid, and he should be called on it. It's, we were talking about Ryan Humiston, my favorite soup of the day, and somebody, now my client, mentioned that Ryan was talking about certain nuts lower your testosterone, you should avoid them. I sent that to you, Robert. I'm not sure if you had a chance to look at it at all, but what are your thoughts, Robert, when you see somebody and they say something, Ryan Humiston aside, but let's say you're processing information on a specific personality and you see them say something so utterly ridiculous you wonder if they're mentally ill. What does it make you think about the rest of their information, honestly?
It makes me very suspect. I mean, it's the same thing that we get into with like when the paleo, the primal diets, the keto diets, all of those things started taking off. The big thing was watch out for these anti-nutrients. Don't eat tomatoes, don't eat nightshades, don't eat grains, don't eat legumes, because these are the things that are making you fat. It couldn't possibly be all the processed shit you're eating in all of the years of being sedentary and eating hyperpalatable, hypercaloric foods. It can't be any of that. No, it's the phthalates, the oxalates, the lectins that are in all of these whole food sources. That's what's really making you fat. And when I hear that, it's just you're going after like the low-hanging fruit. You're preying on people's insecurities and lack of knowledge. It makes me distrust a lot of what you're saying.
Yeah, and I don't even think in Ryan's case he's doing it on purpose. I think either he was trying to make a video for views, but he's picking one or two studies. Yeah. I mean, I don't know what these studies are, who funded the studies, how old they are, how scientifically valid they are. But, Robert, when it comes to a study that shows that, say, a certain category of nuts lowers testosterone, for the average viewer out there that's listening, what can you tell them about that study compared to the actual body of work?
I mean, cortisol and testosterone levels work kind of on an inverse relationship, and their levels will fluctuate throughout the day, just like all of your hormone levels. So we would need to go dig into the study, see were the exact measuring protocols done the exact same. So did they sleep the same amount each night before the testing? What measures were they using to test? Was it salivary cortisol and testosterone? Were they doing serum testosterone and cortisol tests? How accurate were the dietary manipulations? Because if you slept like shit the night before you go and get your testosterone checked, your testosterone is going to be in the shitter. If you slept great and you had a great day the night before, you had a lot of sex with your wife or something, your testosterone will be through the roof because you'll be all happy. But are we going to blame it on the nuts because you had nuts the night before you slept like shit and then that way and did it? It's just, you've got to be very careful. And plus, we look at, nuts are a cornerstone of the Mediterranean diet, or they're one of the foundational foods that are always promoted as, having all these beneficial health properties for protein, for vitamins, minerals, fiber. And it's associated with the Mediterranean diet, which is by all markers one of the healthiest diets and one of the most well-researched diets at all. So are we to believe that we've got this comprehensive body of evidence showing that the Mediterranean diet is very good for human health and longevity, but we're also at the same time going to believe that they're tanking testosterone levels? I don't believe that for a second.
The whole, one thing that really bothers me, no matter what we're talking about, whether it's diet or a training style, is somebody that calls into play the card that the body is so extremely fragile that changing one minor variable is somehow going to be a game changer or a game,
Right.
loser,
Yep.
Nonsense.
Agreed.
All right, Tony with a why not? Arnav, theoretically, yes, but we get down to about 1.5 minutes of rest. Okay, there's chattering.
I don't know if that's going back to the thing where Arnav was saying, can we use the same weight at 3 minutes and then work our way down to 1 minute? Tony's saying that it would be better to go to 1.5 minutes rest and then up the weight. You can't really make that disclaimer. That's just an arbitrary number. In that case, why not just go down to 2 minutes instead of, but we've got research showing that you can get equivalent hypertrophy resting 3 minutes versus resting 1 minute. You just need to do a little bit extra volume to get to that threshold. So you can't really just make an arbitrary statement of 90 seconds rest. That's going to lead to much better hypertrophy than a minute rest. You can't really make that claim.
Yeah, one of the biggest plagues in lifting is arbitrary numbers, and I'm a math guy, and the arbitrary nature of some of these programs can really bother me. It can really get under my skin sometimes when arbitrary standards are applied as somehow important. Biff Tannen's dad. I'd like to meet Biff Tannen one day, but this is Biff Tannen's dad. If training for strength power, should I keep using 5x5, 4x4, and similar schemes, or do you recommend alternating blocks of training and slightly higher rep ranges? I'm going to rewind to the last topic about arbitrary nature of numbers. None of this stuff matters, okay? In and of itself. It's one variable, 5x5s, 4x4s. Overall, it's the overall programming. If you're training for strength or power, the scheme doesn't matter as much. Okay, there's thousands of schemes. So for strength, you have two types of training. You have off-season training, which is going to be power building training, which is basically pretty close to bodybuilding training, but with more of a focus on using the best possible exercises. And then you have peaking training. So during your peaking, that's generally when you're going to be training. You're going to be increasing your cycles, increasing your intensity above 82.5%, 85, 87.5%, 90, all the way up to a new 1 rep max. So off-season strength training doesn't matter what you do. Okay, you're in a building stage. Peaking training is very specific. There's a very specific way to set it up. So in off-season, use whatever works for you. Robert, any thoughts on that?
No, I think you sufficiently crushed that question. I would say just check out your the Power Muscle Burn course or Power Muscle Block course that you got on the Super Living site. That'll give you the best of both worlds. You'll get some power work in the lower rep ranges, and then you'll get your volume work. So you can kill two birds with one stone instead of having to rotate back and forth between the weeks.
A lot of the way the power lifters in the 70s and 80s trained, they use kind of their own systems and own structures, and there's some very interesting stuff we can learn from. Go over to a website called Titan Slacks of Desdo Band. It's an old blog spot thing, and it's an encyclopedia of every article ever put out in the lifting world. It's phenomenal. But there are schemes like you would see these guys in the 70s and 80s doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on their big lifts. So bench, they might, let's say you're doing 315, 1 reps, 2 reps, 3 reps, 4 reps. And then on the last set, they would do as many reps as possible. If they got 6, they would add 5 pounds to the bar. If they got 7, they would add 10 pounds to the bar the next time they lifted. Very arbitrary, seemingly arbitrary, made up, but it worked for them. So don't get caught up in it. Just do whatever you like in the off season and stay healthy. Let's see. Women will argue that their periods are so bad that they need to be on birth control to counteract it. 7 years ago, when I got started in medicine, I could not believe the number of women on it. Any women watching are probably going to get angry at me right now, but my female clients, there's 2 types of female clients. Those that have hormonal issues and blame it for, every bad thing in the world. Like, this happens, so I got to eat, and I got to eat sugar, and the world's going to end, and I can't train, and all this kind of stuff. And then women who suck it up and continue on with normal life. So some women do argue their periods are so bad that they just need to sit in a dark room with a Lifetime network on, eating chocolate until it passes. And then you have others who, just like my wife, just go fucking run.
Sandy is said she was crazy before she was on birth control. Like when we were in high school, there was that one PMS week where she would just be very emotional, very like crazy and naggy, kind of angry. And then she got on birth control, and that kind of like evened her out. So where, I mean, she's always a very happy person. So for 3 weeks out of the month, she was super happy. But that 1 week, she was, kind of like up and down. And
Right.
so, birth control helped kind of like even that 1 week out. But I mean, it wasn't like a night and day difference. It was just that one thing. So she's one of the people that I guess works on this, that it wasn't bad from the physiological standpoint, but from like the emotional standpoint, it helped even her out then on that week. And she won't care me saying this. She's an open book.
So. I don't mean to be insensitive, because it can be a lot harder for some women, absolutely. And I don't pretend to understand the struggle, nor would I particularly care to want to have to deal with it.
Right. Yeah. Like her oldest sister would have to stay home from high school or college, like miss classes because it was that bad for her. So I mean, there are some people that it cripples them, not literally cripples them, but knocks them down so hard that they do need a day or two to recover.
Yeah, I've seen some women get like really awful migraines for like 3, 4, 5 days. And,
it was Sandy's sister.
Yeah, forget that.
Yeah.
Are we talking about Mike Tyson? Great. I'm glad you brought that up, because we haven't mentioned Mike yet. Have you heard the news?
I did. He is coming out of retirement to fight. That should be interesting.
And I believe the question was why, and he said because I can, or something like that.
I'm sure he could still throw a pretty hard, heavy punch. So I don't want to be on the receiving end of that.
Yeah, I don't know. Next thing, we're going to be trying to lure him into the MMA ring. I'm sure people have done that many, many times over the last 10 years. That would be a deep cash grab.
Oh, yeah. People will pay for it, man.
I'd watch it. I'd watch Mike Tyson do anything. I'd really like, get like 10 midgets in the ring and just see Mike Tyson versus 10 midgets or something, just something crazy.
Well, let's let him go against Conor McGregor and see what happens.
How about Mike Tyson versus one of the world's strongest, like Thor,
That would be interesting, or Eddie Hall or something. That would be crazy.
Yeah, like old school UFC, just putting two people in the ring that, aren't necessarily like top trained fighters. Well, Mike's obviously a boxer, but, just put two people in a ring that make no sense together, like 3 sumo wrestlers against Mike Tyson or something.
I'd pay for that. That would be a UFC event I'd pay for.
Yeah, I'd like some kind of a crazy card like that.
Or going back to the WWF, put Undertaker and Kane against Mike Tyson, and let's see what happens.
Yeah, or Undertaker and Kane versus 20 midgets in a last man standing match. I don't know. All right. BenonAdventures. I know the barbell floor press isn't optimal for chest growth, but I personally, for me, what's optimal, man? Just it's a bench press variation. Some people argue the bench press isn't optimal for chest growth. Some people will argue that the incline is the best, or dumbbells are the best. I've heard it all. So do what you love and get strong at it, man. Just that's it.
Yeah, it boils down to individualization.
DeShannon, I haven't taken a rest day in over 2 weeks. Go sit in the shame corner. But lifting every day and cardio every other day while lifts are steadily progressing. Am I not training hard enough? Not necessarily, but eventually it will catch up to you. And when it does, take some days off. Any thoughts, Robert?
If you're able to continually keep progressing, and I'm inclined to believe he's on the earlier end of his training spectrum, and he's probably a younger individual as well, because their recovery capacities are better, and their ability to continually progress in their workouts, adding weight to the bar and stuff like that is going to be much easier than somebody that is older and or been training for a longer amount of time.
Yeah, I mean, the key to longevity is listening to your body and resting when your body says rest. So people get caught up in frequencies. They get caught up in, can I train this many times a week? Can I run this many times a week? Listen to your body, and when it says rest, rest. And if you do not, that's when you're a fool. Because, like, I have a running schedule, but this week, for whatever reason, we ran on a different trail and it pounded up my heel. So I took 2 days off, which I don't normally do in running, to let it heal. So that's really the key. When your body says rest, rest, put on the brakes when you need to put on the brakes. All right, Stoempert, please explain on human variability. 40-year-old male, 2 years training, 140 kilogram, I'm assuming that's kilogram deadlift, 125 kilogram squat, 105 bench kilograms. That's 3x5, don't really max out. The socials get me done. Please expand on human variability. So for 2 years of training, you're doing good. Your bench numbers are solid. Your squat numbers are solid. Your deadlift numbers are solid. And if you're doing all those for 3x5, you are doing very, very good. You're right on track where you should be, where I would expect somebody to be if I was training them after 2 years. Is variability a word?
Yeah, variability. Yeah, I guess he's just.
Sorry, I was. My brain is looking at that. Like,
we need to get some more caffeine in you, Steve.
My inner editor, like variability. Okay. I'm not sure what he wants us to expand on. Robert, any thoughts?
I guess maybe just all the fitness influencers and all of the Instagram athletes out there that are, deadlifting 6 plates and all of that stuff. They might claim to be only training for a year or two. I mean, my first thing is just to say ignore social media. As many things as it can do for a business opportunity standpoint, I think that social media is just this cesspool of negativity, and it gives people more things to be stressed about and unhappy about than it brings them joy.
Well, I'm going to say, like, if I was training you and after 2 years, that's where I would want you to be, because you're training hard. The number of individuals that actually train hard and get to that after 2 years is like 5%, probably less than that. You're on the right path. You're on the perfect path. You are actually a superhero when it comes to 2-year progress, because what's 105 times 2.2 in bench?
105 times 140 was 308. So let me see, 105 times
105 in pounds.
231.
231. So if you're doing a 3x5 with 231 on bench, your bench max is close to 300. Okay, that's after 2 years. After 18 months, I was at 275 on bench for like 5x6. So, you were right around where I was after 2 years training. That's very, very good. The social media lifters, man, look, I've trained some people that are freaks. I've trained a guy that never touched a barbell that was squatting 315 by 5 after 6 months. And he lost 60 pounds. So he was a freak, and freaks exist. And his weight was 165. After 6 months of squatting, he was squatting 315, double his body weight for 5 to 6 reps. Freak, absolute freak, just genetically came out of the womb destined to be like that. But 99.99% of us aren't like that. The 0.001% of us that are like that have Instagram and YouTube channels where we're showing off. So just remember that. You have no reason to get down. You're above 99% of people out there, literally.
Yeah. And measure yourself against your own progress. Don't worry about whatever somebody else is doing. I know it's hard to do that. It's easy to say that and hard to do that, but just, I mean, if looking at social media gets you unmotivated, just unfollow those people or spend less time on there. Focus on what you can do to control your life and your progress in the gym.
And when I'm coaching people, what I look for is mental strength, right? What do I mean by that? The guy that gets to 50-pound dumbbell presses and says, this is hard, can we rework or start over or drop on form, or I don't think I can move up anymore, I'm kind of getting to my limit. People that kind of get to those early mid-range, what I call late beginner, early intermediate strength levels that start to whine. And if you get well beyond that and you're not whining, I would love to coach you. I would absolutely love to coach you. Those are guys I look for. People like you can accomplish whatever they want because they are not putting landmines in their own path. And you're doing a wonderful job. If I had nothing but you, if I had 70 of you to coach, I'd be very, very happy. All right, Larry Brooks. Appreciate the answer. 22 now, but was lifting 3 times a week at school that cycled around bench, cleans, and deadlifts, accessories, and cardios. Yeah, or cardio. Cleans, we've talked about this with Kaj, the inclusion of Olympic lifts in muscle building.
Well, Larry was the one that was saying he was the athlete that trained at school and wanted to know about if he could make his newbie gains on the bodybuilding split.
Yeah. I just was taking a quick jab at Olympic lifting. I'm not even sure I'm a big fan of it for strength training, as being the best option. So I'm on the fence about that. All right, 29 years old and with insomnia. Yeah, I don't know that. I would seriously find a second opinion with a doctor. That's all I will say.
Yeah.
BenonAdventures is 6'3", long arms. That's why I asked. Yeah, you're going to have your own set of unique challenges. So, what do we got? Tony with a why not? Fair enough. Thanks. My question above was related to resting 3 minutes down to 1.5, then progressing on my program. You can do 3 minutes to 1.5. You can do whatever you want, really. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah, as long as you got a plan for progression and you're working it. You go 90 seconds, 60 seconds either way.
Whatever dog you have in the race, whatever horse you have in the race, just run it hard. Let's see. Pre-workout. Robert, it's interesting. When we first started these lives, every question was about supplements. And now it's very, very rare where we get any questions on supplements because they realize you are a wizard when it comes to hypertrophy. We have a guest in the studio.
I just come to get a water.
You come to get a water.
Could you say water again? That was fun. Hi, Fiona.
A water.
A water.
Usually, a lot of times in restaurants, when she asks for water, they'll bring her out like vodka.
Oh, there it is.
What?
I just take both.
Where were we when you asked for water and they brought you vodka?
We're at a burger place.
Yeah, she's like, I like a water, vodka, vodka.
I want to go to that burger place.
I went, water. I try to say it different ways.
Yeah. All right. So, and pre-workout, if that plays any role. Not sure if we missed anything. Please help, fellas. Thanks for the live stream. I didn't see an earlier question. Have a gin. I do not see an earlier question. It looks like YouTube punted it. So maybe, is that making sense to you, Robert, or does it look like we missed a question?
No, and then his next comment below that says, oh, and I also consume coffee along with it. I watch it every Saturday for my nightly home workout after the gym. Thanks for the live stream. All right. Pre-workout, if that plays any role. I'm wondering if like the precursor to this was something about BCAAs or what should he be taking pre-workout, and do pre-workouts have any kind of beneficial impact on training?
I was also wondering if it had to do with sleep, like our earlier topic, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, Havagen, man, can you repost the question or break it up into smaller chunks? Because I think there's a character limit on what these live feeds will do.
Yeah, I think that one of the issues we're finding out is that if you type too many characters in, it won't post the question. So if we miss it, post it up again. We got 37 minutes left. Or head into our Instagram at Ben the Barman or at the Supplement Engineer.
Yeah. Here's an interesting thing, Steve. So along the lines of a pre-workout thing, and this is something I struggle with. Not struggle with, but it's just something I've entertained. Okay, so your Monster Energy drink right there. I've had questions along the lines of, hey, is one energy drink better than the other? Do any of these other little compounds do anything? And outside of the caffeine content, from my point of view, from the research side of things, there is no difference. The little sprinkling of CoQ10 and super creatine and BCAAs and carnitine, that stuff does jack shit. Okay, you need those ingredients can do something, but in the pixie dusted amounts that are in those energy drinks, they won't do diddly poo.
Right.
To quote the great Jim Mora. So my question is, I'll have questions from people, or I'll just be talking to some of the teachers at Sandy's work, or some of the people in our neighborhood. They know what I do more or less. And they said, man, I got this bang. I just got this energy drink. Man, I really feel the BCAAs working. I'm so much more focused and all of this stuff. And they said, I'm killing my workouts lately. It's got to be these BCAAs in here because I've taken coffee before and it's, I've never gotten this kind of thing. And so, I'm struggling. I've got this cognitive dissonance going on to where, do I shit on their parade and say, dude, the 400 milligrams of BCAAs that you're getting in that energy drink are doing fuck all of nothing? Or do I just let them placebo themselves into having these great workouts? Because, who am I to shit on their parade and say, look, you're having a great workout, you're staying consistent, you're making progress. If you think it's the BCAAs in there, that's fine. But at the same time, my mission in this supplement industry is to cut through all the bullshit and help people to not fall for the marketing shit that, he's kind of feeding into at the moment. So it's, how do you kind of to deal with those things? What do you think? Should I just let them do that thing? Or do I cut the line and say, sorry, man, here's where it goes.
It's a viable question for random strangers that I don't know well. I just let them go on their merry way because, I don't have time to dive into things. And in this type of forum or with people that I care about, the truth always wins. I'd be like with my clients, like, look, it's not the Bang energy drink. That has less caffeine than, what you're drinking in coffee. The ingredients aren't doing anything. It's psychological.
Yeah.
And, I'm always for truth. This, we could dive into, say, masks, cloth masks, and say, people believe they are beneficial, but the science behind them, like we saw Dr. Fauci at the baseball game throw out the first pitch last night, and then we see him in the stands and the mask is down around there, and it could be accruing all kinds of stuff, and he's touching stuff, and then he's pulling his mask up. Your hands are filthy. You're touching your mask. You're pulling your mask back up, which kind of defeats the purpose of wearing a mask. There's so many deep levels of complexity, right?
Yeah.
It could be the same for masks. It's like the perceived benefit is not matching up with the reality, So.
Right. Or I saw this middle-aged couple. So Sandy and I are 35. I would assume these people are probably 50s this morning. They're walking on the complete opposite side of the street from us. And so Sandy and I are just doing our normal morning walk like we do. They're on the other side of the street. Yet when we start to even get close to them, they reach in their pockets, pull out a handkerchief, put it over their face, and just hold the handkerchief there until they are past us. And then they take it down and put it back in their pockets. I'm thinking, what do you think that's doing? I mean, we are separated by like 15 feet, and you're going to put this nasty handkerchief. Your face is all sweaty because it's 90 degrees here in the morning in Texas. So you're going to take this sweaty handkerchief, put it over your mouth to walk, put it back in your pocket, take your sweaty ass hand, cover your mouth again, and do it the next time you rode over. I mean, you're trying to get yourself sick by doing that. You're not preventing shit.
Right.
It's all psychosomatic.
Yeah, well, those are dangerous words in this day and age because, it's hard to have a rational, reasonable conversation, not just about things like this, but even like Bang energy drinks. Because, like, if I posted on my social media right now that the benefits you think you're getting from Bang are a placebo, I would have a war. I would have a war, a literal war. I always line up with the truth, the truth as we know it, the truth as best we know it right now.
Yeah.
And, I always like to caveat things because we are humans and we evolve our truths based on the accruation of additional information. So it is always subject to change.
Agreed.
Robert, I'm going to let you deal with Liu. We got the kitty cat, the fluffy kitty cat, the fluffy, fluffy little kitty cat. Should we train to failure or leave reps in the tank? I have a pat answer for this, but I'm going to let you start the dance.
Always train to failure, and then even then push past failure. If you have to have somebody pull the bar off of you, then you're training hard enough. No, I'm entirely kidding. I think it's going to be a complicated, complex answer. Certain exercises you can train to failure on. Certain exercises I would not recommend training to failure on. It's going to be a case-specific thing. Also, it also kind of depends on where you're at in your training career. Do I think beginners and intermediates necessarily need to train to failure? No, and I probably wouldn't recommend it, especially for beginners, since they are still learning the movements, and training to failure is going to lead to form breakdown and could eventually possibly lead to an injury. Plus, they're so receptive to any kind of training stimulus. They can probably train, 3-4 reps from failure and still make gains. So I think for beginners and intermediates, it's best to leave a rep or two in the tank. Plus, constantly training to failure on every set of your workout is going to be very fatiguing to the nervous system, to where you're gonna feel very flat, and it's going to be hard to continue to maintain a high level of intensity throughout the rest of your workout. Going further, the more advanced you get, I mean, if you are reaching kind of your genetic limit, your genetic ceiling as far as how much muscle you can build, you probably will need to start implementing some of these failure training things like partial reps, forced reps, forced negatives, those kind of things. But for the average person, I don't think they need to worry about that. And then also look at it on an exercise specific thing. Do you want to train to complete all out failure on the bench press, squat, deadlift, overhead press? No. Can you go to failure on side laterals, bicep curls? I mean, even dumbbell presses where you can just let the dumbbells drop to the side if you do. Yeah, that's going to be completely different than going for like a heavy compound lift. So it's not a one answer that's across the board. It's going to depend on training experience, what exercise you're doing, a bunch of factors to consider there. So where do you think, Steven? Did I put my foot in my mouth with anything I just said there?
No, I mean, with anybody that says, let's establish this, that you can train you should train all exercises of failure, or you should never train any exercise of failure. Anybody that says either of these, is incorrect. The logical flaw is that all exercises are equal. That's not the case. So some exercises, you can train to failure without a physiological issue, like it's not going to be punishing or difficult, or you're not going to increase the risk of injury dramatically or even to a noteworthy degree. Bench, I can train to failure on every session. I never personally have an issue with it. Squats and deadlifts will jack your shit up, to put it in scientific terms. It's really exercise dependent. Then we have the question, is training to failure a requirement for hypertrophy? No. The deeper into a set we get, the more muscle fibers we recruit, and there's some good things with that. That's how Arnold used to train, and that is a lost art in the world of percentages and RPEs.
Yeah,
and it's just good old hard work, pushing a set for as many reps, safe reps. So that's what, instead of training to failure, let it be exercise specific, and do what and follow what I've said for the last 15 years. Push a set for as many quality reps as you can, stopping that set when you feel like you might fail on the next rep or when your form breaks down. Practice safe sets. All right. Omega Ds. When I see, I'm thinking about double Ds and triple Ds right now. Omega Ds. You pulled our head on this Friday into the world of breasticles. All right, hello, sir. What's the best way to focus on triceps while doing close grip bench press? You don't focus on turning a compound movement into an isolation. You just trust it is working your triceps. So don't worry about it. Do your close grip benches. If you want to do some more, focus on the contraction or a specific muscle group on a close grip bench, you can, but I would decrease the weight. because you do not want to take a heavy load. If you bench 315, you could probably close grip pretty close to that. So you don't want to take that heavy load and try to turn that compound into an isolation. The only way to do that is to dramatically drop the weight, noticeably drop the weight, and try to just focus on the triceps. But I don't like that. I would rather do a superset. I would rather do more volume. There's other ways to ride the bicycle to get tricep stimulation than turning a compound into isolation. Any thoughts, Robert?
The only thing I would add is that if you want to do it, maybe try doing some dumbbell floor presses, or close grip, neutral grip dumbbell floor presses with that way, and just focus on making the triceps the push. So work on your mind muscle connection with doing that. As far as a bench press, though, I mean, with a heavy compound barbell movement like that, just focus on moving the weight there. Your triceps are going to get stimulated pretty well if you're lifting heavy enough.
Yeah, and I mean, you could do some simple things like supersets. Depending on the setup at your gym, you could do a close grip bench press, and then you could have an easy bar, and you could just do a burnout on skull crushers. You could grab some dumbbells and do dumbbell skull crushers. You could drop down and superset them with diamond push-ups. The options are really endless. So.
Yep.
Let's see, NADPAD. Do you think test levels are decreasing due to electronics or other factors? Robert, I'm going to let you deal with this.
It's interesting because if you do look and you see like the worldwide testosterone levels of men, or it might be, I forget what the graph was. It was either worldwide levels that they were assessing on men or just in the United States. But there's like a slow, like steady decline in the average testosterone levels of men. I think it's a couple of factors. Do I think it's electronics? I don't think that's the primary driver. If it was, we probably would have had more of that effect when electricity and things were first starting to become ubiquitous, because the amount of signal and noise that these things emit now is so much less than like the old like Zach Morris cell phones that we had and the car phones back in the day. Could you make an argument that there's more Wi-Fi signal and stuff like that being blasted now? I think, yeah, but it's probably also shielded a little bit more than it is back when it first debuted on the market. What I really think it is, I think so obesity levels and activity levels are inversely correlated with testosterone. So the fatter you are, the lower your testosterone is. The world is getting fatter, sicker, and unhealthier. And as such, we're seeing a concomitant decrease in testosterone levels. I think the overall in the global spec, the world's nutrition habits and fitness habits are so poor, it's impacting lifestyle. I think, and our stress levels are also going more and more through the roof because we are constantly addicted to our phones. We're worried about what other people are thinking. We're not getting enough sleep. All of these things are contributing to whether or not or whether your testosterone levels are going to be optimal or they're going to be on the decline. So I think it's more external factors than purely electronics. I think it's diet, exercise, stress, and sleep.
I have nothing to add to that, Robert. You nailed it. Exercise and diet are the major factors. And you just look like from when I was a kid. We were active all the time. It was very interesting when the lockdowns occurred. Everybody was out. Even kids were out wandering the street. Now it's back to normal again. No kid. We were driving the other day and we're like, hey, look, there's a kid outside. Are they lost? Are they in danger?
Yeah.
Right. Tony with a why not? My lifts are benched. Da 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 da. I have no more weight in my home gym. I've added reps. Would you suggest time under tension? If you have no more weight, check out block training. I got a free PDF on my website, superlivingtoday.com. And where is my branding shit? What am I doing here? Boom.
There you go, Steve. You're failing at life, man.
Boom. All right. So check out my website, superlivingtoday.com. And how do I get back to the comments? There we go. I have a free home gym PDF with some block set information. Rest pause training is a good way to go. Then you can add things like supersets. But ultimately, time to add some more weight. I mean, I know it's a hard time to get weight, but until you can add more weight, rest pause, supersets, get creative. Any additions, any thoughts, Robert?
I mean, is that 8 reps and 12 reps? Hell, man, work your way up to 20 reps per set. If you get to do that, then we can start messing around with time under tension. But get everything up to 4 by 20 or 5 by 20, and then you can start messing around with time under tension or decreasing rest periods. But you can still build a lot of muscle in the 10 to 20 rep range. So if you're at 8 to 12 reps right now, keep the weights there and grind until you're at 20 reps per set.
Yeah, especially with bench. I mean, you can get your bench reps to. People say, there's this fear that somehow high reps aren't going to be beneficial, but if you look at the simple mathematics of 1 rep max increases, if you take your bench 80 kilograms by 12, and then you bring that up to 80 kilograms for 3 sets of 20, you're going to be a monster as far as your 1 rep max. So just think about that. Mr. Buffalo, skip the comment before. I saw the comment about your age. I didn't really skip it. I think we kind of glossed over it. Let me know if we missed another comment because that's the last one I saw. Biff Tan's dad, thanks for your time today. Thank you, sir, for tuning in. Neo is a client of mine. How's it going, Neo?
Hello.
He has a spectacular garden that I'm envious of. Tony from Victoria, Australia, lockdown capital at the moment. Very sorry to hear that. It's very interesting in Ohio where I'm at. Deaths are at the lowest they've been. But all of a sudden we're implementing masks. I think cases are up because testing is up. So I don't know what we're doing as a world. I really don't.
I'm pretty sure come November 4th, there will be a miracle cure and all of this corona crap will be gone because it's all political maneuvering at this point. Once the election's over, everything is going to go back to normal.
All right, Biff Tannis dad. I know it's not the greatest product, but I use Amino Energy EAA pre-workout. I cut it with regular EAA powder to bring the caffeine level down, the EAA level up. That sounds reasonable to me, if you want to cut down on the caffeine level.
Yeah, I think Amino Energy only has, like 100 milligrams per scoop? 150 if that at that?
Yeah, I know a couple people that took it. I didn't think it was anything extreme, but
yeah, 100 and 150 is the ballpark, I think, for most Amino Energy products.
All right, Aaron. There seems to be a lot of basic questions and people looking for approval. Seriously, guys, these guys aren't your replacement dads. Actually, I'm old enough to be everybody's dad. Now, I would disagree. I would disagree. There's not a lot of basic questions. Here's the thing with lifting, and I'm going to be honest with you, and I'm not trying to be harsh, but I know this from being involved in a lot of forums over the years. I was involved with Muscle and Bra on my own site. I had, I think, 108,000 posts on that forum. I was at I'll Pump You Up by 20,000 posts on that forum. I was at Muscle and Strength. I think I had 50,000 posts on that forum. I was highly involved with forums. And there was something that was basically forum fatigue, where after 5 years, you've heard the same creatine question 1,000 times. And then a new guy comes along and asks it, and you're like, search, right? There's a little bit of fatigue in things that we've heard 1,000 times before. Like when I make a video about a topic that some of you have probably heard 1,000 times before, somebody will say boring, old, whatever. The reality is there's always a new wave of people coming in that have not heard these questions before. So a decent question for you, Aaron, if you want a decent question, ask a decent question. I'm just saying, if you want a decent question for you, ask a decent question. These people aren't here to entertain you. And that's half the problem with this generation. People expect to be entertained. I'm here to help people, and let's keep the focus on helping people. Posting questions like this aren't helping anybody. It's just criticism for criticism's sake. Like you're positioning yourself as better than everybody else. And if you have a question, ask it. If not, go fuck off. Nat, I know y'all probably answered this before. Top 5 supplements you recommend?
I think we just need to end the live right there. So you just fuck off and just hit the end button.
I hate bullshit, man. I'm too old for bullshit. If you don't like what other people are asking, go fuck off. I mean, seriously. Yeah, I mean, everybody's got these fucking love each other, hug each other fucking bullshits all over the bumper stickers and these motivation quotes. And then you get some fucking bullshit like all these people it's trying to psychoanalyze people asking fucking lifting questions. Go fuck off. I mean, seriously. All right, Robert. Go ahead. Top 5 supplements you recommend.
It depends a little bit on what are we addressing. Are we looking to improve cognitive function, where we're looking at our nootropics? We're looking at muscle building supplements. We're looking at general health and wellness supplements. Or are we going to like really niche it down and say like, what are my top 5 favorite protein powders or pre-workouts or something like that?
Let's go muscle building. Creatine, caffeine, boom, boom.
Creatine, caffeine, protein powder. If you're not getting enough protein, just because you need protein to build muscle. Beta alanine is not in my top 5. Sorry for everybody out there that likes the tingles. It's not going to do much for you from a hypertrophy standpoint. I would put a joint formula in there, believe it or not, because I think everybody is going to deal with their aches and pains and some inflammation from grinding hard enough in the gym. So I think that could help you get some longevity out of there. And I would also put in a fish oil supplement, which has some anti-inflammatory benefits, cognitive benefits, and most people don't eat enough fish and need to get some more essential fatty acids in their diet through omega-3s.
D3, B12, K2, anything like that. How would you rate those?
I think those are good for the general health and wellness, especially since most people probably don't get enough sunshine. B12, if you're not getting enough meat, yeah, that'll make sense.
I was just sitting here wondering, though, after I told Aaron to fuck off, I'm like, is he one of my clients?
Yes, somebody's
probably. If he was, he isn't now. I'm telling you that. I also do intermittent fasting and eat a high protein diet later in the day. Okay. Yeah, I would just check fats and carbs. I mean, man, sometimes just adjusting a little bit of variables. Robert, we have an EAA question. It's been a couple weeks since we touched on EAAs.
Yeah. Well, hey, Steve, a few minutes ago, you mentioned we haven't had any supplement questions, and now we've had like 3 or 4 in a row.
Yeah, I'm glad. It kind of breaks things up a little bit.
Thoughts on EAAs, Mr. Robert? Well, essential amino acids, you need all 9 essential amino acids to build muscle. So you can get those from Whole Foods. If you're not able to get enough dietary protein in your diet, then supplementing with an EAA makes sense, because that way you'll get enough of all of the essential amino acids to maximally support muscle protein synthesis and resist muscle protein breakdown, therefore putting you in a net positive nitrogen balance, and you'll be able to build muscle and effectively repair muscle tissue. I drink EAAs each day. Do I think I'm getting any kind of magical benefit from them? No, because I eat plenty of chicken, eggs, fish, whey protein, all of that throughout the day. I just like to drink something tasty when I'm training, or just in the afternoon, instead of opening up a diet soda or drinking plain water. I'll sip on them. Do I think they're better than BCAAs? Yeah, because they contain the other 6 amino acids you need to support the muscle building process. Plus, flavoring has come along now to where EAAs taste just as good as BCAAs. Rewind back to 2018, 2017. The flavoring systems weren't what they are today, and EAAs tasted significantly worse than BCAA formulas. But nowadays, BCAA formulas and EAA formulas cost about the same. So if you're going to spend $35 or $40 on a tub of aminos, why not get all 9 essential amino acids instead of just paying for 3 of them? That's kind of how I look for it. If you're not getting enough protein, they would definitely be a worthwhile supplement, I would think.
Thank you, Robert. It'd be interesting, sometime to just for me and you to do a video on EAs, BCAs, because, obviously I worked at Tiger Fitness for a number of years, and you're a writer at Tiger Fitness, and I no longer have an affiliation with them. And sharing my thoughts on BCAAs, it's hard to do when you're working in the industry. But But the old Jerry Ward, Mark Lobliner argument debate got kind of heated for a while. But it would kind of be nice for us just to put an end cap on everything, from a neutral, rational standpoint.
Agreed.
Speaking of rational, when I went on my rampage, I think we lost 10 live viewers on the feed. So I wasn't telling everybody to fuck off, just for the record. Hey, you got anger issues, old man. Yeah, I do. I have no patience left for tomfoolery. I mean, take that shit elsewhere. I just call them as I see them. So if you're going to play a card, I'm going to tell you what the card is. All right, Arnav, what's the real amount of muscle you can gain per year? I see different things everywhere. All right, so Dr. Casey Butt, and this is my go-to because it's a very comprehensive study. He studied over 300 natural champions. And invariably, when I say that, someone will say, were they real naturals? Honestly, we can never say for certain that all 300 individuals never took any steroids. But what we do is have a pretty good snapshot of a potential. And what we find out is basically, and many experts agree, that the average natural can gain 30 to 35 pounds of muscle mass over the course of their lifetime. This is a natural that's starting at a normalized body weight, not underweight, like 128, 132 at 5'10". Okay? So 30 to 35 pounds of muscle. Generally, in a perfect world, if you come out of the gate training as hard as possible, as correctly as possible, you can gain about half of what your remaining muscle mass is left. So if you have 30 pounds of muscle to build, the first year you have the potential to gain around half of that. This is not a rule, it's a general guideline, but it is a reasonable guideline. And each year thereafter, if you have 15 pounds or 12 pounds or whatever you have left to build, you can gain about half of that. So the closer you get to your limit, the more difficult it gets to add that last amount of muscle. Is it a simplified curve like that? No, but it's close enough. Robert, any thoughts?
Well, you crushed it, Steve.
All right. Let's see. What do we got? Neo. Neo is a client of mine. Your client bought a 6-pack of frozen White Castles. Neo has lost a lot of weight. I believe over 50 or 60 pounds.
That's awesome.
A, remind them of their goals. B, ignore them. I just got a notification from YouTube, by the way, that my 4 secrets of muscle building pros that muscle building pros don't share was released. So I just got a notification from YouTube that a video I put out like 5 days ago was released. Well, I'm doing a live video. All right, your client bought a 6-pack of frozen White Castles. Do you remind them of their goals? Yes. You have goals. Ignore them. You're not a lost cause because you've lost 50 to 60 pounds. Go halt, grab the burgers, and eat them before the. Me and my wife were actually talking that we've never tried White Castles. So I'm just wondering, if you're going to go for a burger, do you go for a double Whopper with extra bacon, or do you go for 6 White Castles, Robert?
We didn't have a White Castle where I was growing up, but we had Tasty Donuts, which was a fantastic donut shop. And they had these little things called Castle Burgers, which are the same little like White Castle burger. So it's like 90% bread and then like that little tiny hockey puck looking meat patty thing. I never really liked them. My dad really did like them. And so we would order, we'd go buy some and he would eat them. I would rather eat a real burger than White Castle. Do I remind them of their goals or ignore them? I would remind them of their goals, probably.
I'll say this, Neo, you're doing great. You've made a lot of progress. What doesn't, when I'm working with clients, consistency is everything. And the guy that once or twice a month has a little bit of something I don't worry about. It's like the clients that are always like 2-3 times a week, they got something going on, they'll never reach their goals. It takes them forever. They'll lose a half a pound a week and they're on like a 3-year cut. So
is that instant gratification really worth delaying your progress from the goal? What's more important, the immediate gratification from eating the fast food or, getting yourself healthy and getting the body composition you really want?
The only thing I'm questioning, Neo, and I have a lot of love and respect for you, is if I'm going to go for a burger, I'm going to go for I'm going to go for a Whopper. I'm going to go for Burger King. So if I'm going to go for something off the reservation, to reference the Washington what the fucks, the Indian reference. Sorry, I don't know. If I'm going to go off the reservation, I'm going to eat something that is good. Like if I'm going to break my diet and have a beer, I'm not going to have a Miller High Life. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
If I'm going to have pizza, I'm not going to have a frozen pizza from Walmart.
Yeah, you're going to make it worthwhile. It's going to be something good, and that's going to be enjoyed.
So, guys, this is our last call. You got any questions? Get them in now. Last call for questions. Speaking of pizza, we just ordered from a company, some pre-made cauliflower pizza crusts because honestly, I like pizza way too much, and let's just have some of these around. So we're going to test those out. Have you ever tried the old cauliflower pizza crust trick?
I have not. My parents have used it a couple of times, and they've reported good things. I just have yet to try it myself. I'm curious about it. I'd like to try it. I mean, I've done cauliflower rice before when I made jambalaya, but I've never eaten cauliflower crust.
They look all right. They're only like 70 calories per crust, which is appealing. So I can save the calories for food.
I'd crush the whole thing.
Right. But it's interesting. They also had cauliflower tortillas, but those were 70 calories per tortilla. That's not any less than a corn tortilla. So
right. What are your thoughts on eating challenges, Steve? And within the fitness realm, so you do a really hard kick-ass workout, and then you go and binge, and you have like some gaudy meal, like a 2,000-3,000 calorie meal.
Just general eating challenges, like people putting them up as videos, or
I mean, do you think is it a healthy thing? Is it a sign of maybe like an underlying not so healthy relationship with food, or is it just something you're doing just to kind of like fuck around?
I think once a year it's fun to go to the circus, right?
Yeah.
But an eating challenge where the point is to see how much food you can eat, I find it rather pointless. I mean, you take that over to, I'm going to see how much weed I can smoke. I'm going to see how much beer I can drink. If you're going to do something to see the limits of the human body, go walk, go do something positive. It's like watching a car wreck, and I get the appeal for it. How many hot dogs can, that little Japanese guy, Yapasaki or whatever his name is.
Kobayashi.
Yeah, Tobayashi. How many, like watching me eat like 57 hot dogs. I'm both, curious, and I'm also both disgusted. Like his stomach's the size of a calf, a small animal. I don't know. Not a fan. I was a binge eater, and it nearly killed me. I just, it's no place in fitness. That's just my opinion.
Yeah.
And there are so many unhealthy relationships with food in the fitness industry. When I was at my peak, after I lost 100 pounds, and I'd get on social media and I'd look vascular at 20% body fat, and people would be like, he's on all kinds of steroid cycles, and how can you be so vascular at 20% body fat? I don't know, dude. I really don't know. But, when I was at that level, I started to attract a certain type of follower. And whenever I would drink pizza or eat pizza or drink beer, some of these people would unfollow me. It's like I broke some sacred inner circle of being lean or ripped. And
weird.
It was like this act of defiance against my debauchery. So, all right. Omega D's. Thank you, sir. You're very grateful for the helpful replies. Thank you. And I'm glad we can clear up some confusion. Damien, for a beginner of about a year of lifting, is 30 years of age going to hurt my progress? No, not at all. I answered this question yesterday on my Instagram. Somebody said they were coming in at age 34 and they want to know if they could do anything important or if they were pretty much at the end of the road. Like, life is just beginning. Life is just beginning. I really feel you don't even hit your physical peak till you're like 28, 29 in a general sense. That's when you see baseball players flower, flower. That's when you blossom, that's when you see running backs at their peak, their best years, maybe. I don't know. But obviously some sports are different, like gymnastics and whatnot. But lifting, you got a long way to go. I didn't take up ultra running until my 50s. What do you
look at the most recent Mr. Olympias? I mean, Phil Heath he's over 40. Sean Roden, they're all older. It used to be a time with the Olympias that, it was their late 20s, early 30s. Because I think Lee Haney retired in his early 30s from Olympic competitions, and he had already won 8 of them in a row. So yeah, you're definitely you get that old man muscle maturity as you get into your 30s and 40s.
Yeah, especially with lifting. I think lifting and things like that. You haven't even begun to run yet. You got a lot of years left in you.
Yeah.
My last question didn't show up in the stream. I think that was it. Hopefully. BenonAdventures says White Castle is great. I love them. Maybe I need to try White Castle. But I'll take Robert's expert opinion on this one.
I'd rather eat a real burger.
White Castle is like Oreo, a thing all to itself. I'm going to ask you that, Robert. Have you ever tried a deep fried Oreo?
Negative, Ghost Rider.
All right, so we did this long ass hike, McAfee Knob in Virginia, and we desperately needed a beer because it was a hot day. So we found this little burger joint, and they had like brassieres, bras all over the ceiling fans and all over the wall. So it was kind of a cool little place, and had a good beer selection. And for dessert, their food choices were pretty good, elevated for a bar, and they had deep fried Oreos. So we tried one, and we were like, nah, it didn't add anything to the Oreo. So yeah. Just curious.
No, I've never tried that. I think I've had deep fried cheesecake before at a restaurant, and I just,
Some things don't need to be deep fried, man. I mean, cheesecake, right?
Right.
I think the only way you can improve an Oreo is add ice cream to it.
Yeah, or throw it in a milkshake and make like a cookies and cream shake. That's awesome.
Coltrane, any ideas for high-calorie snacks for bulking? Robert, I have a pat answer for this, but I'm going to let you start.
I mean, protein, you can always go with like the protein bar route if you want to. If you want to go more like whole food stuff that you can just do here, hard-boiled eggs, nuts work really well, yogurts, and throw some nuts in there or some granola. Yeah, I mean, that's my main high-calorie snacks for bulking. Unless you want to, how complex do you want to make these snacks? Do you want to do a lot of prep to make them? Or are you looking for like something you can just open the pantry and just like go to town on right away?
I like back in the day, squats and milk, was the thing, right?
Yeah.
So I think I made an article or a video. I can't recall. It was called Deadlifts and Heavy Cream. But high calorie snacks, go to the store and get some heavy cream. Okay. If you take your protein shake and add an ounce of heavy cream into that, it's going to completely change the way it tastes. That fat and that creaminess is going to elevate any protein shake, and you're going to be amazed. You're never going to want to have a regular protein shake again. But heavy cream, an ounce in each shake adds a couple 100 calories, 150 calories or whatever.
Cheese is good. Cheese is another high calorie snack.
Yeah,
I guess we're also going to argue semantics and what technically qualifies as a high calorie snack. Is this for like a 130-pound female? Or are we talking like a 250-pound male or a 200-pound guy? So it's going to be, you got to have to adjust your expectations on that too.
Yeah, I look for fat things, heavy cream, adding sour cream to meals, adding cheese to meals, adding avocado to meals, snacking on nuts, anything that's fat centric.
Yep.
Eating peanut butter out of the jar, that sort of thing. Buffalo Seb skis. I lose about 1.5 pounds a week if I have a big junk if I have a big junk meal, I just expect to lose 1 pound that week. That's a pretty good rate. And I would take a big junk meal once a week and lose 1 pound a week. That seems like a pretty good trade-off.
Yeah.
Damien, thank you. Very helpful. Thank you, sir. It was that one. Okay, we got it. Larry S., what's your opinion on natural flavors? I like this question because it's new and exciting. It seems to be in everything now. Robert, do you have any idea what a natural flavor is? Maybe in protein powder or in general foods?
Yeah, well, in dietary supplements. So you look on the back little panel of the thing, it'll say ingredients. And so you'll have your supplement facts panel list all the actives on there. And then in the other ingredients section, it'll say things like salt, maltodextrin, which is like an anti-caking agent, silicone dioxide, which is another anti-caking agent, sucralose, ACE-K, the sweeteners. And then it'll also have something in there. It'll say natural and artificial flavors. So by and large, it's marketing jargon. I mean, it's things to make the product taste like what it says. So if you have a vanilla tasting protein powder and it says natural and artificial flavors, those are components that they pull, these little extracts they pull from things either from natural sources or synthetic sources, that, and they inject them into there. But just because something says natural flavors doesn't actually make it that what's the word I'm looking for? Doesn't actually make it better, because there was a day in time where BCAAs were synthesized from things like hog fur, bird feathers, things like that. That's natural. I mean, but do you really want to know where your BCAAs actually were synthesized or derived from? So that's why you see a lot of the things doing the vegan friendly or the fermented amino acids now. So it's not something to get really worked up on. The amount of these natural and artificial flavors that you're consuming are so minuscule that it's not going to have an impact. It's mostly marketing jargon trying to appeal to the natural fallacy that most people have, that just because something is natural automatically makes it better for you. Well, arsenic and cyanide are natural. I wouldn't really go around, taking those by the cupful either.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Neo, I live here in Minnesota. LOL. Minnesota, LOL. The state fair is deep fried everything. Don't do it. Sorry, I couldn't resist. Did that take you back to Minnesota there, Robert?
It certainly did. The 3 months that I lived in that godforsaken state.
Yeah, every O is O. Oh,
sorry, Neo. We did not enjoy our 4-month stint in Minneapolis.
Well, Neo actually lives pretty close to where the George Floyd event occurred.
I do. Yeah, that's right.
He's very close. Was very close to ground zero. So I haven't checked in with him to see how things are going right now, but I can imagine, Wisconsin's pretty much the same thing. And if you go to the state fair, you pretty much, you're going to have a lot of food porn, and you're going to have a big fat tummy ache for a couple of days.
Yeah.
Fried ice cream is amazing. I tried it. I don't know. I'm old-fashioned ice cream. Cole, 6'5", 190, 19. So Cole's a little bit on the thin side. Definitely looking for fat sources, heavy cream, nuts, avocado. You're probably going to be looking for the cheapest possible fat sources. And
peanut butter, banana, and honey sandwiches, man. That's real cheap and really high calorie.
And I think we got our last question from NADPAD. Thanks for your time, guys. Do you think bulking and cutting are necessary for building muscle? Greg said you can build in a deficit or maintenance. Greg. Very good question, NADPAD.
Yeah.
When you are a beginner, you can definitely build muscle running in a slight deficit, but it becomes more difficult. And the people that, some people are trying to work magic. They're trying to build muscle while losing fat. Can it be done? Yes. How difficult is it? Extremely difficult, because most people don't train hard enough. What I would love to see is a study where I take 10 guys that are not morbidly obese, right? They're just normal guys, like 200 pounds with a little extra little extra fat. So we know they haven't added muscle because we know when people add weight, they add fat and they add some muscle, right? So I'd like to see a study of guys that are like 190, 200 pounds that are losing fat while I'm training them to see what the average individual can do from the ground up as a basic beginner and as an intermediate. My best advice, my answer to this question is always, if you have either way, whatever you're doing, you need to train the same way. Okay. You need to train with a relative degree of intensity. You might need to do a little bit less volume depending on who you are, or a little bit more volume when you're cutting. A little bit more volume, less intensity, or if your energy levels are down, a little bit less volume. Okay. So either way, you got to train hard. Do you want to lose fat? You're going to have to train the same way. So be in a deficit. Okay. Do you want to build muscle? It's going to be easier in a calorie surplus. Either way, you're training the same way. So focus on what you can control, training properly. And can you build muscle in a deficit? I don't know, but a deficit's something you do for only a limited amount of time. If you have extra fat, get the fat off. All right. Any thoughts, Robert?
Yeah, you can build muscle in a deficit if you're a beginner, or if you're very obese, or if you've been away from the gym for years and years, like you trained for 10 years and then you took a 10-year break and then you're returning to the gym. Yeah, you can build because you're detrained. Novices and detrained individuals can build muscle in a deficit because their body isn't sensitized to the stimulus from resistance training. But the more experienced you are, you're not going to be able to efficiently build muscle in a deficit or maintenance. You're going to need to do, the more efficient route is to do the bulking and cutting cycles. Yeah,
I mean, the average individual doesn't need to be cutting for a very long period of time, so you're going to have to train the same way. I had a question last night from somebody that was 300 pounds and they wanted to build muscle and not lose strength while they were, and it was almost like, I don't want to lose fat if it's going to mean that I'm losing muscle and strength. And I had to remind them, you're choosing to die young rather than risk losing a couple pounds of muscle.
Right.
So get the fat off, train the same way.
Yep.
All right. We are gone. Tune in next Friday at 11. If you have any questions that we missed, you can head over to Instagram. Robert is the supplement engineer, or you can bother me at Ben the Barman and John Dio. Parting shots. We got a nice kitty cat. Do you guys have any tips to increase the big 3 lifts? My whole channel, John, that's a big, beefy question, and it requires a lot of digging deep. Go to my main page of my channel, search bench press, squat, deadlift. You will find a wealth of information. All right, guys. And if you want to hire me as a coach, I'd be glad to help you out. All right, Robert, thanks. Have a great weekend and have fun on your anniversary.
Thanks, Steve. You too.
Bye.